She stared at the haggard-looking woman, upset and disgusted that the woman would even try to talk to her. Who was she? Couldn't she see that she wasn't in her class? Her annoyance and irritation knew no bounds. Then, she did the best thing that she could do. She spat on the woman and went away. Little did she know that that encounter would change the course of her life forever. Ella was born with not just a silver spoon in her mouth, but she also had bronze and gold. Her parents were one of the wealthiest people in the country, and Ella was an only child. At birth, an expensive BMW was bought for her, something that a lot of people weren't privileged to have until they were much older. There were other things that Ella started to enjoy at a tender age, like traveling to different countries for every holiday, having nannies and housekeepers at her beck and call, wearing the most expensive outfits in the country and around the world, and having money in her name. By the time Ella was 8 years old, she had already visited about 24 countries. Wow! What more could she want? Ella was living a life that a lot of people craved for, and her parents ensured that she did not just have everything she ever wanted to, but also spoiled. No one dared to discipline Ella when she went out of line. At school, the first time a teacher mistakenly asked Ella to face the wall in punishment just because she kept making noise in the class and distracting others, Ella cried to her parents, and they had the teacher locked up. No amount of pleading could make them change their mind, even though the teacher never laid hands on Ella. No one is permitted to discipline my child. Whatever she wants to do, let her be given the liberty to do it, whether or not it is distracting to those around her. Ella's dad roared. The school had no choice but to obey his instruction because they were too afraid to disobey him. Also, they didn't want him to take Ella to another school. Everyone knew how much money the school benefited from having Ella as a pupil, and so they let her be. Even if Ella was climbing the desk of every pupil and screaming her lungs out when a teacher was teaching. No one dared to stop her. In school, they couldn't discipline her. At home, they pampered her like a princess, and Ella grew up knowing that because of her father's wealth, she could do anything and get away with it. It started from her housekeepers and nannies. Ella was rude to them. She commanded them like she was older than them, and if they made a small mistake or wasn't fast enough for her, she would speak to them in a condescending manner, and sometimes even ask her parents to withhold their salaries. And guess what? They would listen to her. Another thing that Ella enjoyed was being begged. Whenever her nannies or housekeepers did something to upset Ella, they would fall down at her feet and beg her profusely, just so that their salaries wouldn't be withheld. That was always Ella's priceless moment. She would sit in front of them, her shoulders raised high in pride, and watch them beg, sometimes with tears, until she was satisfied. The ones who didn't beg enough always suffered the brunt of her decisions. Ella carefully chose her friends too. The moment your parents weren't influential or powerful or held a position in the country, Ella would filter you out because you were not fit to be in her circle. Oh yes, she started this in primary school, and by the time Ella got to secondary school, her group of friends were the children of politicians and high-class business moguls. Ella was the star. Everywhere she entered, people respected her because of her father's wealth. I can do anything I want to do, and no one will stop or control me. I live whichever life I want to live. Ella bragged to anyone who cared to hear. In secondary school, nothing changed. If anyone stared at Ella in a way that she didn't like, especially if the person was a teacher or even the cleaners, Ella would report to her parents, and they would take immediate actions. They all knew Ella and the consequences of stepping on her toes, and so they did everything possible to avoid her. Even her friends were careful, even though they were also children from rich and powerful families. By the time Ella got to SS3, she began to wonder why no boy ever said he liked her. Her friends were already getting love letters and pet names, but not Ella. She didn't even have any male friends, as all her classmates avoided her like she was a deadly disease. Ella was deeply worried and confused. I am very beautiful, well-traveled, and my parents are rich. Why are they not all flocking around me, professing their love to me or dying to be my friend? Ella asked her friends. She couldn't understand it because Ella believed that she had everything and that she was superior to every other girl in the world, including her friends. But still, nothing changed. Ella became so bothered by it that she complained to her parents. And her parents, because they didn't want their daughter to be sad or worried over anything, and demanded that the boys in Ella's class become her friends by force. It was a demand that the school couldn't turn down because they were beneficiaries of Ella's father's wealth. They had to force all the boys in the class to start talking to her. That was the only way to make Ella happy. This made Ella believe that there was nothing she couldn't have in the entire world, including the obedience and attention of people. Like, subscribe, and turn on your notification to get more interesting and entertaining stories like this. One day, Ella needed to go out and get some candies. There were a lot of sweet things in the house for her, but sometimes Ella was so insatiable that she would still want to get something that wasn't in the house. Her parents wanted her driver to take her, but Ella refused. It was just the nearest shop down the road, and Ella wanted to take a walk. It wouldn't even take up to 10 minutes, and she would be right back. Still, Ella's parents didn't want her to go alone. They always wanted their daughter to be protected and watched. So, they asked one of their securities to go with Ella. But he was expected to walk at a little distance so that he would not inconvenience Ella. His role was to ensure that no one tried to harass Ella or disturb her. Ella got to the shop and bought as many candies as she wanted. But on her way back, there was an old, tired, and haggard-looking woman on the way. The moment Ella saw her, she was disgusted. Ella always hated poor people, which was exactly why she treated them the way she did. Once, when she was little, she had asked her parents why poor people existed. They exist so that they can serve you, Ella. If they weren't poor people, you wouldn't have had nannies, housekeepers, and drivers. They are living so that they can be of service to you. Her parents had told her, making Ella believe that she could do just about anything to poor people. They were alive because of her anyway. As Ella got close to the old woman, her annoyance grew. The old woman, in turn, looked at Ella with pleading eyes. "My child, please, can I get some water to drink? I am parched, and I haven't had anything in my stomach for days." The old woman begged. She was literally using her last breath to beg. Ella still had more than enough money left. Her parents always ensured that even when Ella was sleeping, she had bundles of money beside her so that if she woke up and wanted anything, she wouldn't have to ask twice. But hearing the woman speak to Ella infuriated her. "How dare you? What right does a woman like you have to talk to someone like me?" Ella asked the woman angrily. It was one thing to see a woman like that, but having the guts to even speak to her was what disgusted Ella even more. Her security, who was following closely behind, hurried to Ella, wanting to pick up the old woman and throw her out of the way. But Ella stopped him. She wanted to handle the situation herself. Ella enjoyed it when she had the chance to trample on people that were beneath her. "Look at me. I am rich and privileged. A smelling pig like you has no right to even walk on the same path with me or talk to me," Ella told the woman disdainfully. She went further to rain insults on the old woman and called her names. Then, before she left, guess what Ella did? She spat on her. Even if she didn't want to help the woman or give her money to buy water, she could have just passed her by and went her way. But no, Ella didn't. What was the joy in that anyway? It always gave her joy whenever she was able to treat someone with superiority. Life continued as it had always been, and after Ella's secondary school, her parents already assured her that she would attend the most prestigious and expensive university in the entire world. Ella was excited. She bragged to her rich friends about it, but even as rich as they were, their parents couldn't afford what Ella's parents gave her on a platter. So, Ella started going shopping in preparation for her trip. But things began to take a different turn for her parents that same year, just a few months before she was supposed to travel to her new school. First, it was her father's business building that collapsed to the ground. It felt so unreal because the building has solid foundations. So what happened? Ella's father was even fortunate that it didn't fall on anyone. It happened at night when everyone was in their homes sleeping. After that, Ella's parents began to suffer one tragic loss or another. From business and contracts, they began to lose their properties all over the country and investments. Every waking day, Ella's parents received a call telling them that something bad had happened to what they owned. Ella's parents had to start going to the banks for loans to be able to start up another business or buy back what they lost. But every single bank they went turned them down, even though they knew Ella's parents as one of the richest people in the country. Before the series of setbacks, Ella's parents got whatever they wanted from banks. Some banks even came to them with offers on their own accord. But not this time around. Suddenly, no one wanted to associate themselves with Ella's parents. Even their influential friends refused to grant them loans. Then, they decided to start selling off their cars. They had a fleet of cars in their home, and most of the cars hadn't been used for in a while. In all of this, Ella had no idea because they didn't want to break her heart. Also, they believed that they could sort it out. After selling all the cars and investing with the money they actualized, everything still went downhill. It got so worse that Ella's parents even lost the mansion that they lived in. Unfortunately, they would have to evacuate the house to a smaller one in the rural neighborhood. Hmm, it was like a nightmare, but unfortunately, it was their reality. They only had to think of a way to break the news to their spoiled daughter. Like and subscribe for more interesting and entertaining stories like this. No matter how much they hated to do this, they didn't have a choice. So, they eventually called Ella to tell her what was going on. Ella, who had been oblivious, thought that her parents were calling her to tell her that her ticket to leave the country was ready. Unfortunately, it was to give Ella the worst news that she had ever heard. Is it a prank? Ella asked her parents. They had never played a prank on her before, but Ella hoped that this was their first time. Much to her dismay, they weren't joking, no. The horrible reality was staring at her square on the face as they told her what they had been dealing with in the last couple of months. Everything had gone down the drain. We need to leave this house right now because it doesn't belong to us any longer. We have been able to get a one-bedroom apartment in the rural neighborhood. This is the best we can afford at the moment, Ella's father told her. Ah, Ella's mouth fell open in shock for some minutes. Then she asked about her school. Her parents must have paid her tuition already, right? Regardless of what was going on, all she needed to do was find money to buy her ticket, and she would leave. But her parents had more bad news. They couldn't secure her admission any longer because they lost the money. When Ella got over the shock of what they just confessed to her, Ella stood up and backed at her parents, telling them that they had failed her. They tried to apologize to Ella and told her that they did everything they could do. But Ella didn't listen to them. She also told her parents that there was no way she was going to them in the rural neighborhood. She had never been there all her life. Her parents tried to convince her, but it was futile. I would rather stay with my rich friends than go with you to the dungeon, Ella insisted. They couldn't force her, so they let her be. While her parents moved the few things they still had to their new home, Ella started going from one friend to another. My parents have lost everything, including our house. Please, can I start living with you? Ella asked the first friend she went to in tears. The friend told Ella that her parents wouldn't allow it. Ella decided to try her second friend. But what she didn't know was that she was in for a rude shock. When she got to the home of her second friend, Ella relayed her plight to her, hoping that the friend would have sympathy for her and let her stay there. But as soon as Ella was done crying to her, guess what she did? She burst into a loud and mocking laughter. Then she taunted Ella and told her that pride goes before a fall, and that she was glad her circumstances were not forcing Ella to climb down from her high house. She went further to tell Ella that even if there were 101 vacant rooms in her father's house, she would rather allow dogs to sleep in them than give one to Ella. Oh wow! With pride and annoyance, Ella walked out of her home. She still had other friends anyway. However, Ella's second friend had gone ahead of Ella and told the news to their other friends. And so, even before Ella got there and sobbed in their presence, they already knew. None of them wanted to show pity on Ella and accommodate her even if they could. It dawned on Ella that when the chips were down, she really didn't have any friends. As much as she hated to, she had no choice but to go to her parents in their poor home. They welcomed her with open arms. But that was only the beginning of hell for Ella. There were no nannies, no housekeepers, no drivers, or even security agents to watch over her, run her errands, do her bidding, or be at her beck and call. Ella realized that she would have to do certain things herself, like washing her own plates and clothes. At first, Ella rebelled though. She told her parents that they ought to be doing everything for her, but they refused. Her parents realized that they had done nothing but pamper Ella. It was at their lowest that they realized how condescending, disrespectful, and mannerless Ella was. But was it too late? In this new neighborhood, everyone was poor. So, Ella refused to make friends because she still insisted they were beneath her social class. Meanwhile, her rich friends cut her off completely now that her parents were no longer rich. However, months later, Ella became bored and lonely. There was nothing else she did other than to sit at home, forcefully do chores, and lament about her new life. There wasn't even a television for her to watch. How pathetic! Anyway, Ella decided to finally take a short stroll around the neighborhood. While on it, some group of thugs rounded her up. Ella asked them what they wanted, but it was obvious that they just wanted to bully her. "Yes, we have seen how you carry your shoulders high around here, as though you are better than us. We just want to teach you a little lesson," they told Ella. Ella shivered in fear the moment they told her that, and had to swallow her pride and beg them. But they didn't listen to her. Eventually, a young girl of Ella's age came to her rescue, pleading with the thugs to leave Ella alone because Ella was her friend. It was a lie, but she wanted to save Ella. They told Ella that it was because of the young girl that they were letting her be. When they eventually left, Ella was filled with gratitude for the very first time. The girl introduced herself to Ella as Joanna, and guess what? They became fast friends. Like and drop a comment for being friends with Joanna taught Ella a lot of things that she had never learned in her entire life. Joanna was from a poor family, perhaps even poorer than Ella's parents. But Joanna was different. You could never catch her being sad. She was always cheerful. Ella began to spend more time in Joanna's presence, and soon enough, all the bitterness and pain she carried in her chest about her parents' situation disappeared. But that wasn't all that awed Ella about Joanna. Despite the economic situation of her parents, Joanna was very generous. One day, when Ella was seeing Joanna off after visiting her, they met someone who was stranded and needed money. The money on Joanna was her last money, which she was supposed to use for dinner. But Joanna, without hesitation, gave it to the stranded person. Wow, Ella was stunned. Even when she was rich and had more than enough, she never gave out to anyone. So seeing someone who didn't have but still gave without blinking left Ella in shock. Later, she asked Joanna how she could be that generous with little or nothing. Joanna shrugged and told Ella that no matter the state of anyone, they were always better than someone out there. Putting smiles on people's faces meant that yours would also be lit up with smiles. Gradually, Ella began to imitate Joanna. It was difficult for her because she had lived all her life in a certain way. But with Joanna's help, she was able to change. Ella became happy, contented, respectful, and helpful. Her parents could not believe that their spoiled and rude daughter had turned a new leaf. People in the neighborhood began to exchange pleasantries with Ella, smile at her, and even offer to help without asking. No one bullied her again. For the first time in Ella's life, even though her parents were still poor, she was happy and content. One day, Ella was sent on an errand by her parents to get something for them. She knew that it was the last money that they had. But on the way, Ella met an old woman who seemed like she was going to collapse in the very next second. Ella had deep compassion on her. The woman had a small load on her, and Ella was quick to take it off her. Then she even offered to take the load to the woman's house. "Weren't you on your way somewhere?" the old woman asked Ella. "I am, but I am young and energetic. When I am done helping you, I will run to where I was sent," Ella told the woman. Then the woman allowed Ella to take the load to her house. On their way, Ella even bought some water for the woman because she looked thirsty. Meanwhile, she didn't have to ask. When they got to the woman's house, Ella was surprised because she didn't know that this part of the neighborhood existed. Anyway, the woman thanked Ella and she turned to leave, but the old woman stopped Ella. She asked Ella if Ella didn't recognize her, but Ella shook her head and told her that she was sure she had never met her before. The old woman smiled and dragged Ella down memory lane. She reminded Ella of that fateful day exactly a year ago, when she had met Ella on the way and pleaded with her for some water. Ella eventually remembered and gasped in shock. Instantly, she fell on her knees and begged the woman for forgiveness. Then, she was Ella, the selfish, rude and disrespectful girl. But she had changed for the better now, and she was glad that she was able to do something nice for the old woman. After all said and done, Ella left. She told Joanna of her encounter with the old woman, the 2 times that she had met her. Ella thought that it was a small world. But when she described where the old woman lived, Joanna told Ella that she had been living in this neighborhood since she was born, and there were no houses in that region. Really? Ella was confused, but she quickly forgot about it. 3 months later, Ella's father got a call from an old friend living abroad. Apparently, he was just learning of Ella's father's predicament. He also told Ella's father that there was a business deal they did 2 years ago that seemed like it failed. Because Ella's father had more than enough money at that time, he had simply taken his mind off it completely. But his friend told him that it yielded billions of naira and that he was calling to give Ella's father his rightful share. After everything that Ella's family had been through, Ella's father didn't want to bank on it. Instead of telling his family about it and shattering their hearts if it turned out to be false, he kept it to himself. He only told them that he was taking a short trip. Ella's father traveled and met with his old friend. Eventually, he realized that it wasn't a lie. Right there and then, millions of naira was transferred to Ella's father. It was more than enough to start up his business again. More so, this same friend was willing to introduce Ella's father to some of his international business associates. And just like that, Ella's father was back to being rich. After setting up a new business and buying an even bigger house and cars, he went back to Ella and her mother with surprise. Their family rejoiced and danced. They moved out of the rural neighborhood and went back to luxury and comfort. But Ella never went back to who she was. She maintained her friendship with Joanna and everyone else she met when she was a poor girl. When her rich friends started coming around again because she had become rich, Ella didn't give room for them. Instead, she used her father's wealth in helping people and putting smiles on their faces. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on your notification for more stories.